Hello and welcome. In this video today, we're going to take a look at the gaming performance in some select few high-performing AAA and also some very demanding games on the Legion Pro 7i for 2025 with the 5080. So the way we're going to do this testing here is putting the laptop into performance mode using Legion Space, and we're going to be testing at various different resolutions here. We start out with this game. This is Assassin's Creed Shadows. The 5080 for reference in this laptop can run up to a full 175 watts of power, has 16 gigabytes of VRAM buffer, so we should be able to max out pretty much every setting here without having any issues whatsoever. So as we start out this run of Assassin's Creed Shadows in this benchmark, we are running at 1600p resolution. That is the native resolution of the panel on this laptop. We're running on the ultra high preset, and we've got DLSS set to balanced mode with frame generation turned on at 2x. This game does not currently support frame generation at any higher levels, so 3x or 4x. So multi-frame generation, which is the claim to fame for Blackwell in the RTX 5000 series, is not available in this game just yet. That said, there is ray tracing in this game, and there's an option to diffuse only in certain areas in your hideout or everywhere. I have enabled the diffuse everywhere setting, which means we're going to get a full ray traced image as much as possible in this particular game. So as we can see here, visually the game looks absolutely stunning. We get lots of fog effects, mist effects, lighting, shadows that are being cast are very high detailed and high quality. The water effects are excellent, very natural and lifelike in appearance. Of course, the foliage, everything, the moss on the textures and all of that looks absolutely fantastic. We can see here that 165 watts feeding that 5080 is giving us 112 FPS average frame rates here, with about 75 watts being consumed by that Ultra 9 285H this generation, or 275HX, excuse me. So this has the highest end Core Ultra 9 processor for this generation. If we drop the resolution down to 1200p, which is also respectable and very playable on this particular device, we can see here that there's very little change actually to the frame rate, perhaps about 20% boost. We're getting about 130, 135 frames per second, but averaging around the same, about 115 FPS. So this game, the scaling isn't, or the resolution scaling isn't as demanding as one would have thought. So we're still getting about 160 watts to that GPU. The game looks excellent with all of the same settings enabled. Now, if we swap over to something that's more reasonable, so let's say we play in the high preset, because we know ultra high in these engines that are used for Assassin's Creed games are just overtaxing, we get a very respectable jump up, and we're now above 150 FPS here. The display rate's native refresh rate is 240 Hertz. We're not quite getting there, but 143 FPS in this game, which is a very slow-paced RPG style game, is absolutely fantastic. We're in the triple digits no matter what we do. If we drop it down to 1200p with the high preset, of course DLSS and frame generation at 2x are still on, and full ray tracing is engaged here, we're getting about roughly the same performance here, about 150. Sometimes we get a 10% boost, but as I mentioned, the scaling in this game, particularly for resolution, isn't all it's cut out to be. Despite that fact, we're getting a very playable frame rate. There's very little frame stutter, and our frame time graphs are looking excellent as well. I don't think anybody will be complaining about this level of performance. And finally, just to show you the raw power of the 5080 here, so despite all of the gains generation over generation, if we turn off DLSS and frame generation and resort to TAA in just the high preset with ray tracing turned on, we can see how taxing these games really are without all of that upscaling tech. So that means that the native 1600p resolution of this panel, we're getting barely 61 frames per second here, with the occasional stutter observed in multiple runs of the benchmark here. So if you're going to play these games, any AAA titles, for example, for the last few years, and you want to play them particularly at the highest resolution and the highest preset, you will need to engage both DLSS and frame generation for best results. All right, let's turn our attention now to a different game, another very popular AAA title. So this is Cyberpunk 2077, Phantom Liberty with the version 2.3, the latest update with all of the ray traced and path tracing goodies. We start out here in 1600p in performance mode with the RT Overdrive preset. DLSS is set to balance with frame generation turned on at 2x, which is what you would have seen from the prior generation RTX 4000. And with full path tracing enabled here, our RTX 5080 can give us a frame frame rate of about 74 FPS, running at a full 172 watts there. So we're pushing as much power to that GPU as possible. As you can see here, our CPU is a little bit lower than it was in AC Shadows, so this one is a little bit more GPU bound. We've got 62 watts roughly on the CPU package, with the occasional bump up to 70. And we saw a little bit there of frame stutter, and again here as well. So we can see here that the RT overdrive preset is quite demanding on even the fastest of the GPUs in the mobile lineup from NVIDIA this generation, despite Blackwell having made some excellent gains. If you're going to be using full path tracing in this game and going to be playing at a 1600p resolution with the RT overdrive preset, which means all of the visual bells and whistles are enabled, you're going to need something very beefy. And if you look here at the GPU memory, we're about 54% in terms of the 16 gigabytes of VRAM buffer, so you're going to need a large VRAM buffer as well. And 95 frames per second here as we close off that benchmark run. If we drop the resolution down to 1200p, leaving everything else as is, we can see that we get a respectable bump up here. We're now starting to get into the triple digits here, 106, 110, 111, 115 FPS, much more playable at this resolution. And considering that you're playing on a 16-inch display, this isn't that bad of a compromise in my opinion. Now, if we return back to our native 1600p resolution and bump up the frame generation to 4x, which by the way is the claim to fame of the RTX 5000 generation, one of the key highlight features of RTX 5000 and Blackwell, we see here now that inserting some extra frames by AI chops, we're getting about 140, 144, 150 FPS here roughly, really improving the overall stability of the game in my opinion, although there is some acceptable or occasional stutter. If we drop the resolution down to 1200p, leaving frame generation at 4x, we can see here that now we're starting to touch 200 FPS and north of that. So we're really starting to boost that performance quite a bit here versus what we saw in 1600p. So this game definitely uses more power, more VRAM for resolution scaling, as well as for visual fidelity as well. Now, what I want to show here is without any ray tracing, or excuse me, without any DLSS or any frame generation, if you do not use any upscaling tech whatsoever, in 2025, still with games like this at the highest preset, with path tracing enabled, no DLSS, no frame generation at 1600p resolution, it's struggling even to hit 30 FPS. So this shows that despite all of the upgrades and the improvements in performance, these games are just getting more and more demanding every year, requiring you to use the upscaling tech for a good experience. If we drop the resolution down to 1200p, we can get a somewhat console-like experience without any upscaling or any frame generation involved. However, this is not potentially an ideal way to play, considering you want to have as high a frame rate as possible in this game, because this is very fast action, fast paced. Of course, you can play with lowering the resolution a little bit more, but I think below 1200p starts to get a little bit blurry. Okay, now let's look at Hogwarts Legacy, another popular AAA title, a little bit older from a year or two ago, but this one is still, has a lot of support here for DLSS frame generation. Plus, this is one of the games that has good ray tracing and also has frame generation, multi-frame generation support rather. So we can do frame generation at up to 4x. So we're going to start here with the 1600p resolution. We've got everything set to ultra, RT is set to ultra, DLSS in balanced mode, and frame generation set at 4x. As we run through Hogsmeade here, and thanks to those of you who pointed out that flying around is not a good estimate nor a representative, of a good benchmark in this particular game. So I've decided to return to form. I'm not sure what happened in the middle there, but now we're running through Hogsmeade here. So this part can be quite demanding and quite taxing. We see a little bit of frame stutter here and there. We're not getting the smoothest, in terms of, smooth frame rates here, but sometimes there is a little bit of frame stutter, although rare, not as occasional as consistent. But we see here that we're getting about 150 FPS using only about 116 watts on that 5080. For some reason, this game is, both taxing the CPU and GPU. It's not actually all that demanding on the GPU, which surprised me a little. I expected this to bump all the way up to 175 watts, considering that I've enabled all of the frame generation, ray tracing, DLSS, everything is enabled, so that GPU should be fully utilized, but a very respectable 150 frames per second. If we drop the resolution down to 1200p, which obviously is very playable on this 16-inch laptop here, with the OLED display, you're going to get smooth visuals and some great, visual fidelity as well. 160 FPS is the claim to fame here, so we're getting actually very good frame rates with the occasional dips down into the 130s or 140s, which which is, still pretty acceptable here, considering this is an RPG style game and you don't really need triple digit frame rates here to have a good gameplay experience. That said, frame generation is definitely doing its job here, and if you look at our frame times, it's actually pretty low, which is doing a great job as well, although I'm a little bit suspicious of that frame time number here that Hardware Info is reporting. Alas, don't take that for gospel here. What we want to look at here, however, is the frame rate, and we're going now north of 200 FPS. As we return back to Hogsmeade, though, it will jump or drop down to about 150 to 160 FPS. So if you want to play this game with RT, you're going to need a 5080 to really have a forward-looking and future-proof gaming experience in this game and any other games in the future, more of which will now be including ray tracing as we get into 2026 and beyond. Alright, now for something a little bit different. So this is Titan Quest 2, and I like to test here the type of games that I play. If you play FPS games or competitive shooters, then perhaps you can check out another video here. But I like to play AAA titles, games with good story, with good production values, good quality content. And Titan Quest 2 here is an early release. I picked this up on Steam at a discount. There was a really nice and sizable discount before this game actually goes into full release. So if you missed that window, oops. I played the original Titan Quest, many years ago, and I'm loving the return here to form from Titan Quest. I was a little bit disappointed initially with Diablo 4, although I've come back to love it. And we're playing a different type of title here. So 1600p epic preset, DLSS is set to quality mode. We've got frame generation set to 4x. Basically, that is completely maxed. Oh man, those boars did a number on me. I don't know what happened there. So we're going to return back to those in a moment here and take care of some revenge. But anyway, as we talk through it, so as you would expect, this game is not going to be, that super demanding on the CPU, on that GPU. So the 5080 should be able to run circles around this game. And as we see here from the frame rates here, as will pop up with the OSD just a moment while we do some inventory management here. Excuse a little bit of the homework there. But yeah, so if we pop up our OSD here, we can see 170 watts. So this thing is able to really take all of that juice that the GPU can give it. But look at our frame rates here. As a result, we're getting some excellent frame rates here. Nearly 200 FPS is our average. And that means we're going to have a nice and buttery smooth gameplay experience in this game here. Even if there are any, heavy areas with lots of action on the screen, we're not going to drop below our thresholds of 60 FPS in this particular game. And I think that is the story of the RTX 5080, and the RTX 5000 generation and multi-frame generation is to boost up all of those frame rates, as well as in some cases, depending on the game engine and their GPU dependencies, some games have also boosted their 1% lows as well. That means you're going to start to get north of 60 FPS 1% lows, and that's what ultimately gives you that very smooth frame rate here. So this game looks absolutely stunning, and if you're looking to play a title like this, just know that you don't need a 5080 actually to play this. Okay, so for the last game here, to round out our intensive game testing of the Lenovo Legion Pro 7i for 2025, we're going to round this video out here by taking a look at Borderlands 4. Now, there's been a lot of controversy around how taxing this game is and how unoptimized or poorly optimized it is, and people have been complaining quite a bit. So let's talk about the settings that we're going to run this at. I'm going to try to simulate for you the worst case scenario here. So we're running at the native 1600p resolution of this display. VSync is turned off. And the other notable settings here, we're running in the badass preset, so you cannot go any higher than this in terms of the resolution. We've got DLSS enabled, set to a balanced profile. At 1600p, it's sufficient to get by with balance, considering the game has lots of fast moving action, so you're not going to be really standing around to notice pixels and whatnot. We have frame generation turned on, and because we have the RTX 5080 in this laptop, we benefit from multi-frame generation. We can crank up frame generation all the way to 4x, and we'll do that to benefit from all of that goodness. And of course, all of these things here in terms of the graphical presets are set pretty much to their maximum values. Maximum frame rates here. You're not going to max out the display or anything of that nature. So basically this, we are exhibiting for you guys the worst case scenario. So badass preset means every single visual fidelity and effect is enabled. And let's see here, we're gonna go through the game and try to get into some battles here for you guys so it can simulate what the hectic gameplay would look like. Okay, looks like there's a battle there, and let's just, yeah, why not, let's hop down there and let's get into it, so we'll see. Alright, so let's swap over to corrosive. That oughta... Oh, come on. Okay. Thank you very much. So you can see here that the 5080 has so much horsepower, but what really kicks it up a notch... Oh, that's a pretty sweet looking gun. We'll take it. Oh, our backpack is full. Oh, well, come on. Well, I guess we cannot take it then. Or let's do some inventory management actually while we're at it. Okay, so we know that this guy, maybe we can farm this guy because he drops a bunch of rare weapons here. Let's go into our backpack. Alright, let's drop some of the... Let's see, can we drop this? Drop. Just to make room for this one, and we'll take a look at it later. Was it this one? Or was it this one? I think it was this one. Okay, anyway, what I was trying to say here is if we look at our values on the on-screen display, we see here that we're getting at 75 watts on the Intel Ultra 9, Core Ultra 9 285HX. Sorry, these names just keep getting terrible and terrible with each and every generation. Our GPU there is totally maxing out. 170 watts of power is being pushed to that RTX 5080. So total combined power budget is definitely around 250 watts here. It is certainly not a lightweight in that regard. So that said, let's take care of these guys while we talk. A little bit of freezy action. This is just brute force method. Chill out, bro. These are my worst enemies because they throw these Alright, well, it's not the heaviest battle ever, but nonetheless, we can demonstrate here what's happening. So if we look at our VRAM here, we're using 10.5 gigabytes of VRAM, and that is kind of what we expected here. This game, even at 1600p resolution and badass preset, uses a lot of VRAM. So those GPUs 5050, 5060, and 5070 this generation, are really bottlenecked with that 8 gigabytes of VRAM. I really do not know what NVIDIA was thinking. Even the entry level should have gotten 12 gigs. That would have made them much more suitable to gameplay for at least a couple of years. So if you bought into those this generation because of Multi-Frame Gen, then you would have been able to hold out with those laptops and those GPUs for at least a couple of years. But alas, this is, corporate greed is never ending, and this is what the situation that we face here. Nonetheless, so let's look here at 170 watts on the RTX 5080, 90% GPU load. So we're pretty much maxing out our 5080 here, 11.5 gigs of nearly 11 gigs of VRAM. But look at our frame rates. That multi-frame generation really works here, and our frame times, the bottom number here, kind of off to the right, about 4 or 5 milliseconds, is actually pretty damn good, considering if we combine not just our frame generation, but also with NVIDIA Reflex being on. I believe those can be turned on both at the same time in this game, but nonetheless, very low in terms of latency, and we're getting 200 plus frame rates. This being a 240 hertz display means we're nearly in badass preset, maxing out this display. You're not going to have any issues, and because it's an OLED screen, everything is buttery smooth. There is no, and I mean no, screen tearing to speak of whatsoever. Hey, what is this? I didn't know there was like a climbing up thing here. Let me go off track. What? How did you do that? Huh, there we go. Okay. What is around here? Ooh, iridium. Thank you very much. Grenade. So, as you can see here, the 5080 is doing just fine. And to be honest, the fan noise from this laptop isn't that bad. I hope you guys can hear it when I'm not talking so much, because I do not have my noise cancellation on my mics turned on. Hoping that you guys can hear some of the fan noise. It is a very soothing kind of whooshing wind noise. That means you can easily tune it out, and you'll get used to it quite quickly, which means you're not going to have high-pitched sounds or something that's very annoying. I'm playing here with the volume of the game at around 30% volume on the PC, on the laptop, excuse me, and I'm speaking at my normal speaking volume. I'm not speaking louder. I'm not trying to really, get the volume up, because I want you guys to be able to hear both the fan noise and also the game itself. So I think, to conclude, before I let you guys enjoy some more gameplay, to conclude, I think the 5080 really brings, really packs a punch. If you're looking for something that really is next gen, and you want something that's, gonna last you definitely a couple of years, it has plenty of VRAM with that 16 GB VRAM buffer. So you have definitely some future proofing there. Of course, you don't need to play every game at 175 watts of power, but what's good to know is that this chassis and this laptop is configured and built to handle running at this power level, 250 watts overall between CPU and GPU, all friggin' day long. And every single game that I've thrown at, I've literally just cranked everything to the max without thinking for 1 second even what impact that would have, and this thing runs everything buttery smooth. Plus, if you combine that OLED display here with those low response times, excellent 240 Hz refresh rate, 1600p resolution, and those vivid, juicy candy-like colors, then hey, this is a definite winner. Stay tuned, of course, for the full review coming soon. I will be doing a full and detailed review of this laptop, probably the most complete review on YouTube for the RTX 5080 equipped Lenovo Legion Pro 7i for 2010. There's a reason why this is a popular laptop from Lenovo each and every year, and this year is no different. So we're going to do as much coverage as we can on this particular machine before we have to give it back. Also, I would say, because holiday time is approaching, we're right around holiday and holiday sales season, Black Friday and whatnot. I would say if you're looking for a laptop this generation, or if you really want to jump up to the 5000 generation, this is definitely going to be my recommendation of the year laptop. It's priced below what some of the other models are. Razer is way too high of a price, in my opinion. Even the ROG Zephyrus G16 this year is insanely priced. I've had that laptop before. I owned it and reviewed it for many months last year, but I would have to say that I was very disappointed to see that the pricing this year is just absolutely bonkers insane. I understand that that is a very unique formula that Asus has on their hands, but there's no reason that doesn't, in my opinion, warrant them charging literally an arm and a leg for that particular laptop. I do not think that Asus is Razer or Apple with the prices that they're trying to charge. Oh, the corrosive damage works great on these guys. It destroys their shields. Nice. Dance, baby, dance. Oh, I hear a grunt. I think even incendiary damage would do a number on these guys. Yeah, for sure. I wanted to get into a battle here, but I'm not sure where I've ended up. Anywho, enjoy the gameplay footage. Thanks. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like the content that I produce, please click subscribe, click the notification bell, and so that you're the first to know when there's new content available here. And if you like any of the products I review and wish to purchase them, you should check out the description below. I often include purchase links included with discounts to help you save a little bit of money wherever possible. And if you like the channel and want to help support the channel further, so we can continue to bring you content like this in the future, please use the coffee link to give us a tip. It is a small gesture, but is much appreciated, and it goes a long way to help independent creators such as myself. Thanks very much for watching. Enjoy the footage, gameplay footage of Borderlands 4, and we'll see you in the next video. Okay, I think we have a nice setup now of guns that are actually... Why are we getting all blue guns now? That's interesting. 185, 154, okay. Let's see, what does this do? Alright. Jet bipod, oh. Okay, interesting. Yeah, why not? Nice to see so many guns. Alright. What is this place? Oh, looks like an armory or a battery? The Howl. I do not know what is said location. What? Hungering plane. Alright. Whoa. Oh, there was a little bit of stutter there. Okay. Alright. What's this? Yeah. There's definitely some stuttering happening. Okay. Anybody home?